If you're looking to get on a payment plan with the IRS that is more affordable than one of the easier options, like applying online to get on a payment plan, or maybe you just owe too much money over the $50,000 threshold to apply online with the IRS, then you're going to want to know how to fill out this form 433F. Not only is this for a more affordable payment plan, but it is also for what the IRS calls a currently non-collectible status, when the IRS essentially just doesn't come after you because you can't afford it. The Form 433F is geared towards individuals that are either wage earners or self-employed. Now, to get on one of these more affordable payment plans, I highly suggest that you do call the IRS to get this done. However, you will want this 433F filled out prior to calling them because they will ask you questions based on this 433F. Now, since we're going to be calling the IRS to get on a payment plan, if we're doing this financial 433 over the phone, they may be asking for proof depending upon what expenses you're telling them over the phone. To do this over the phone, you would have to fax them the proof of expenses. What I do personally is I use an e-fax system to scan in any proof that I have, and then I would just e-fax that over to the IRS. Usually takes like 3 to 5 minutes while you're on the phone, and then they should be able to get that proof and then be able to process that payment then and there on, that payment plan then and there on the phone. If we don't have e-fax, and this is what we're looking to do, I highly recommend that maybe you look for like a free trial or something like that, or maybe just do like a 1 month thing with the e-fax so you can get this done online. It will make the whole process a lot easier. All right, so I'm going to go over this 433F. Most of these sections I'm just going to kind of gloss over because they are rather straightforward. However, I'm going to focus more on the last section, the expense section, as that is the meat and potatoes of the 433F. All right, let's do it. Here's the form, okay? First section, rather straightforward. All your personal information in terms of name, address, social, etc. You'll see here the second is the bank account. So you'll make sure, right, we do fill that out, right? All these different accounts you got. And you do want to actually have like the current actual value of those accounts, not a rounded number there. Investments, pretty straightforward as well. Retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, etc. You'll see the list right there. Okay, but again, make sure you do have the current value, not an estimate. Cryptocurrency, same thing. Property, so any real estate, right, that you have, you'll make sure you put the current value. That would be like based off like Zillow or Redfin, one of those websites. You'll get that there. Balance owed, right? We'll get that from the mortgage statement, okay? Let's see here. What's next? Other assets. The most important here would be your cars. Okay, so make sure you do put your car there, especially if, right, you do have a monthly payment. We want to account for that as an expense. Current value you would get from like kellybluebook.com there. Balance owed would be obviously your loan statement. Pretty straightforward. The difference between the current value balance owed is the equity. But obviously, if you have anything else like boats, RVs, or whole life policy, make sure you do put it in this section. Credit cards, pretty straightforward. There's not much I need to say there. Business information, we're looking for accounts receivable here. Remember, again, this is a collection information statement, right? How much can they collect off you? So they're looking to see, hey, do you have any receivables? Does anyone owe you money in your business? Make sure you put that there. Credit, this is business cards. They want to see if they're able to collect on that. This section right here, if you are employed, you will fill out your employer's information, your income, and the taxes that you pay here, okay? How often you are paid biweekly, the gross amount, and then the tax per pay period. So if you look here, I do have an example, right? And then in this case is a pay stub. You'll see here, what do we call this? Bi-monthly, semi-monthly is what I would check the box there because of that. Okay, but I think most people are bi-weekly. That's what I normally see. Gross amount, $65.05. That's what I would put. Per pay period, that's what it's asking, $65.05. Taxes, we'll take a look here, right? The Fed taxes, I would combine those three, Federal, Social Security, and Medicare, add all those three up and put that amount right there on the federal amount. State is pretty straightforward on this one. Arizona, it's got, right? The other thing I would look out for if you're in California, California state income tax plus there's normally state disability insurance you would include in the local. Now, if you have multiple jobs, you'll have to do this a couple times, right? With your most recent pay stub. The next section is for essentially all other income. Self-employment income would be, I think, a common one if we were to fill this section out. You would want to make sure that you do have of your current year, right, year-to-date P&L, profit or loss statement. So you want to put, essentially, what I would do is get a year-to-date P&L. I would divide that by the amount of months. We're in like July here, so maybe we got until June done, so divided by 6, and that's what I would put here as your monthly income. You got any of the other income? Obviously, throw that in there. We're looking for monthly amounts here. Remember that. All right, so the next section of the 433F is the monthly necessary living expenses. This is the meat and potatoes of this whole form because obviously you want to get the most expenses to get your what we call disposable income, your income after all your necessary living expenses, to be as low as possible so you get the lowest monthly payment plan. Now I'm going to show you the form, but then also kind of just what I use as like a cheat sheet before I call the IRS so I make sure that, everything's all in one place and it's just really easy to use. I'll provide a copy of this in a Google Sheets so you can use it for yourself. All right, so here's the form, okay? And you'll see over here, there is the little button that says national standards. This is definitely something that we do use. There are national and there are also local standards for expenses. Sometimes we use the standards, sometimes we use actual expenses. I'll go over kind of when we use what and kind of what this looks like. So for this first section, we're going to use the standards. So when we go ahead and click on this button here, it's going to land us on this page here. I'll also include a link of this in the description here. We scroll down and you'll see national standards, food, clothing, etc. That's what this first section over here is. So we click on this guy. We scroll down, and then you'll see here they give us the amounts here. It all depends on how many people are essentially on your tax return, what you can claim. Who are you responsible for? How many dependents? How many people are in your household, right? If it's you and your wife, there's 2, right? If it's you, your wife, and your daughter, we got 3, etc., right? And then we would just use these amounts here, right there. The next section is transportation, and again, we're going to use the standard here. So we would just click the back button, scroll down where it says transportation, and you'll see these are local standards. So in terms of gas, insurance, parking, etc., these are what we call operating costs, and they are local, so it depends where you are in the country. So you got to locate kind of where you're at. Me, I'm in Orange County in Southern California, so I'd go to the West region. And you'll see I don't see Orange County here, but if you scroll down further, you will see, right, there's these big metropolitan cities here, including LA. And in the LA standard, Orange County is there, right? It does say that. So I would use this one here, LA, for 1 car. Now, if it's me and my wife, I could do the 2 cars if we have 2 cars. Now, if you don't see your city here, you would just use that top like West region or the Southern region, right? Something like that. We would use the standard here. Now, if you have a car, yes, we will get the operating expenses here for the car. But if you don't have a car, we can take the standard for the public transportation, right? And we'll see that here in that transportation section, right there. Come down here, public transportation. You could just get this amount. The next section is housing and utilities. Now, here's where we have to use your actual monthly expenses, not the standard. Now, there is like an upper threshold that the IRS uses that we can see here, but it's not what you just like automatically get. We have to see these amounts actually being paid out of your bank statements. Now, the upper thresholds are here, so you can check, if you have an expensive house, what you would actually get, depending upon how many people are in the house. Right? So you would go to your county and then find that amount, right? So there. Health insurance is the next section, and you do want to use the actual amount that you pay. Generally, people are paying throughout the year on their paychecks. Some people pay straight out of their bank account, and we would want to have proof of that. The actual amount is what you would list here. Out-of-pocket healthcare costs is a standard, so we would come here back to their website, click this back button here, and go to the out-of-pocket. And you get depending upon age, right, we'll get $84 per person as an out-of-pocket healthcare cost. Now, if you're paying more than this, you're going to want to make sure that you do have proof, right? Doctor's notes and bank statements showing what we're paying for. The next section, the other, there's a whole host of these. I would say common ones are like term life insurance, which a lot of people have on their paychecks, estimated tax payments for self-employed people, and or there's like the delinquent state local taxes. This is for, let's say you owe back taxes to the state of California, right? We want to account for that here. So you would put the amount here. Now, you're not technically allowed the full amount, but I would put the full amount and see if the IRS is going to push back. Generally, really what they're supposed to accept is this weird formula of the total amount of state tax debt over the amount of IRS debt, which gives us a ratio, multiply that by your actual payment, and that's what they allow as a deduction. Anyways, student loans is another common one. What is that minimum payment that the student loan, the bank requires that you do pay? These actually do have to come out of the bank account. So essentially everything here have to be actual. There are no standards here. Now, here's my cheat sheet for that expense, the income and expense section. And I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do create one of these prior to calling the IRS, just so you know, once you get done and the agent on the line is like, hey, this is what your monthly payment is, you got to double check that with this disposable income down here. Now, there is a Google Sheets link to this in the description below, so you can definitely go ahead, download this, and use this for yourself. Any of these highlighted sections, or grayed out sections more like, is potentially what you would need to provide proof for. Now, they may ask, they may not ask. And if they're asking for these, you'll see essentially what these, like the proof would be that they ask for. And if you have to send any of this proof to the IRS, they are going to require that you do this through a fax system. Yes, archaic, I know, old. However, we got to work with what we got here. Now, I know most people don't have faxes, so I would either, if I were you and you are in this predicament, I would sign up for one of these like online e-fax systems and either do like a free trial if it's possible, or just do like a 1 month type thing. They're cheap, $5 to $10 a month. So I think it's totally worth it. If you don't do it that way, then you got to mail everything in, which I just do not recommend. It takes way longer for all that stuff to get done. So it's a small fee to pay, but peace of mind because you'll be able to get it done a lot quicker. Nonetheless, here we go. I do have like all the expenses from the 433, not all of them, but most of the common ones are listed here. And you'll see where we actually took the standard expense from the IRS's website, right? This website that they kind of make us land on here, or where we take the actual expense that we're paying on a monthly basis. Now, something else to note is these monthly conversions, right? If we get paid bi-weekly, we would take a look at the paycheck, right? Go to that gross amount and then multiply it by these conversions that they have. You'll see that they do provide these conversions down here at the bottom. What is that? Page 3 of this 433. So this is in referring to the expenses. If you pay these monthly, or sorry, not monthly, and you need to break them down into monthly payments. But it also goes the other way if you get paid not monthly, which most people don't. So this is how we kind of break that down. I threw that on the cheat sheet to kind of get that done. In this case, in our scenario, right, this pay stub is paid semi-monthly here, as we see again up here at the top, right, semi-monthly. So I essentially just did the amount that they get, the $6,500, multiply that by this factor here of 2, and voila, we get the monthly income. Nonetheless, when we end up filling this whole thing out, we get done. You get, again, I'm going to reiterate here, we get to the bottom line of what we call disposable income, and that is what your monthly payment should be based off of. If the IRS agent comes back and has a different number, you got to go through each one of these, make sure you guys are on the same page and why it's off. I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, smash the buttons, like, share, subscribe, everything like that. Thank you so much, guys.